little after 7 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Gerard.
Here.
Councilmember Husnick.
Here.
Councilmember Munson.
Here.
Councilmember Bystrom. Mayor Bain.
Here. I'll ask all those that are able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, before you have an agenda. I will note that there is a slight change to the agenda. It's on the most recent posted version. However, if you looked at the agenda earlier, when it was first posted, this item was not on there. We have added a closed session, new item number 11, related to attorney-client privilege, discussion of pending litigation matters in Lakeview Farms of Forest Lake LLC versus Forest Hills Farm Owners Association and the City of Forest Lake. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second?
All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And agenda is approved. Our next item is open forum. Is there anybody signed up for open forum this evening? I also will note that if you are here for the water bill public hearing, that is a separate public hearing. So you're welcome to speak at open forum, but if you want to wait until the public hearing, that is the first item on our regular agenda. David DeLong, please come up to the podium. Name and address for the record. Welcome.
Thank you. David DeLong, 319 South Shore Drive, here in Forest Lake. Okay, I have two items that I'd just like to throw out and get your thoughts on them. Number one is the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign that was taken down pretty much right out from my house on South Shore Drive. And Dave Adams, you'll remember I called you and talked to you about it. I think you'll recall possibly. Mm-hmm. And I was told it wouldn't be replaced. When they took it down, I went out there and I said, are you going to put a new one up? Nope, we're not going to put a new one up. I said, oh, really? I was kind of frustrated about that response. So I called Dave and talked to him and was told that they weren't going to replace it because it's a residential street. You don't need a speed limit sign there. And pretty much everybody should know that it's a residential street and they should know the speed limit is 30 miles an hour. Well, that's not the case. Because when the high school lets out, the kids come around that corner and they punch it, and before you know it, they're going 40 and 50 miles an hour down South Shore Drive. Well, wouldn't it be nice to have a sign there to at least maybe let them recollect that the speed limit is 30 and not unlimited, so to speak? So I guess I'd like a sign back up there. There's been one there for 41 years. I've lived there in that house for 41 years, and there's been a sign there. Now, not that that sign stops everybody from punching it, but at least it's a reminder or something that would maybe help out. Somebody's going to get hurt there because I've seen it happen. I've seen them come around that corner and slide right into my neighbor's yard. I've seen them come around that corner and hit the telephone pole. Let's have a reminder that the speed limit's 30. The second item that I'd like to talk about is the contract with our Republic Trash Company. I would like to have, being that my wife and I are the only two retired people, well, actually I'm still working, but we're older, past retirement age, I would like a smaller container for my recycling. Can't have it. Why? Because our contract states you have to have a 95-gallon recycling container unless you live in a townhome. Well, okay, I don't live in a townhome. I live in a house in town. I would like to get a smaller recycling container if possible. And I spent a lot of time on the phone with Republic, and they wouldn't budge. So how about maybe allowing senior citizens to get smaller containers, it would make sense to me. So those are the two items I have.
Very good, thank you. Chief, it sounds like we've got an opportunity for the speed cart, and we'll follow up with staff, especially on your comment or your questions about the recycle container. Can I have you leave an email address or a phone number? And we'll be back in touch.
I'd like to see the speed limit at 25 myself, but
I'll vote for that.
Here's a pen.
someday we can discuss that.
And Dick Cheetah.
Dick Cheetah, 21833 Healy, Forest Lake. If you remember, I was here at the last meeting and was concerned about the compost issue. Not being satisfied after going to the compost on Saturday and found that in 45 minutes we had 21 cars unloading. It's very busy, was very, very busy. But that didn't concern me near as much as the fact the county was here at the last meeting, and I heard nothing said about the county entering into a reciprocal agreement with Ramsey County, allowing residents to participate in the recycling and et cetera, all those programs. Well, their site is located on the borderline between Anoka County and Ramsey County, just west of Centerville Road, about 14 miles from here. All right, that's might be an issue for some people. It would be for me because I usually haul quite a bit, and it's difficult enough to keep it on the load going down, but not adding 14 miles. So what I did was I made out a handout for you.
Thank you.
The handout basically is based on figures from your quarterly financials, and which shows the budget. It shows also the expenditures in all of the different various categories or accounts. It's real interesting when you look at it because this is a good profile of how you're spending the money. Who's getting it and who isn't. And if you look at it, you're going to see that the largest is, of course, our police at 42% of the budget. And I look and I find the compost just over 1/4% of the budget, servicing 20,000 people. Seems a little bit lopsided to me. You look at other issues here, and being that I live on the lake, I'm very concerned about maintaining the lake because as far as I'm concerned, the lake is the largest draw that we have for this city. It brings in the greatest taxes around the city, probably 60% of all the residential taxes come off of the properties around the city or around the lake. And if you look at it, well, we're putting less than 1%, 0.68%. Yet we're asking the people who live there to pay taxes that are in that neighborhood of $10,000 a year. And most of them are. So a return on the dollars being spent is negligible. And it's even worse when it's not maintained. And that's the way it was this last year. The concern then is that if you look at how you're spending, this is a snapshot view of how you prioritized Because you were in charge of the budget and the items that go into the budget. That's what you approved. And this document, I didn't put all of them down because you've got quite a few. But it's some of the ones that the average taxpayer might want to know. What percentage, what are you paying for text service? What are you paying for the park system? It seems to me that you're paying a lot more for parks and park maintenance than you are maintaining the lake. I think that you should visit the numbers a little more carefully. I think that prioritizing your spending, the greatest benefit to the greatest number of people in our community should be your goal. I don't think any labels of personal interest or prioritizing based on some other premise is a good idea. I think that we have enough difficulties getting business into our community and getting our image that we're a friendly community and we're willing to work with people. But if we can't work with the people that are already here, and we take advantage of the people who live in this community, then who wants to be here? So I think that you might want to just take a look at what I provided you. In some cases, it's fairly defined, and it's very understandable.
We're well beyond 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
Yeah. I think that the roads are a big issue, fire is a big issue, police is a big issue. But I think that we can't have an issues that we're building empires, we are building a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Closes tonight's open forum. Council, our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have items 6A through 6G. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda 6A through 6G.
I'll second.
Motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our regular agenda for action items. First item is items 7A, which is a resolution, a special assessment for delinquent utility billing accounts. Patrick, you want to walk us through this and then we'll open up a public hearing?
Sure. Annually, the water billing department takes a look at how many bills have not been paid to date. And under statute, we are allowed to put those on the tax bills, but we have to certify them first. This amount that you're looking at will most likely come down because we do send the letters out to the delinquent customers. However, there's many people who prefer to have their water bill put on their tax bill for some reason. So this is just following statute that we have to have a public hearing to assess these special assessments. And again, it's just for water and utility billing that has not been paid to date.
Any questions of staff? Patrick, I had one question. We have one item on here one account in particular that is exceptionally large. I just want to make sure this is an annual number. This is not an accumulation. This gets
Yes, it's an
certified and
annual.
cleared out every year.
Every year, the council votes on certifying these delinquent accounts, so it most likely is an annual amount. I'd have to get who it is, but
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was an annual list.
I think it was a car wash or something last discussion, but I'm not sure.
Could be.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain, actually, we have a public hearing related to this item. And so if there's anybody here that would like to speak on this item, I will open the public hearing now. Please approach podium, and we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? And I'll ask one more time, is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? Okay, we'll close public hearing, bring conversation back to council. Council, I will either entertain questions or a motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 11-12-19-01, a resolution ordering certification of unpaid utility charges pursuant to Minnesota Statute 444.075 subdivision 3E for collection with payable 2020 property taxes.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Item 7B, water meter replacement project. Is it Ryan or Dave walking us through this?
Mayor, City Council, in your packet is a request to approve specifications and authorize advertisement for bid for the water meter replacements as identified in the capital improvement plan that will be financed by the bond proceeds. The base bid will include approximately just over 2,600 water meters to be replaced and an alternate one to furnish about 658 meter heads to, and then an alternate two to have those installed. You can see the anticipated schedule of the project, so we would have the bid opening December 3rd and possible award by the December 9th meeting, and if that follows that schedule, we'll have it within the contract specified for the project to begin in January with a substantial completion of June 15th. So what's valuable about this project is the older water meters, when they get old, they aren't reading the low flow, so we're actually losing water revenue on people using, a little bit of water here and there. So this is something you will see a payback almost instantly with the installation of them. But tonight, we're here to the City Council formally approve the specifications of the contract and authorize advertisement for bid.
Any questions for Ryan? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the specifications and authorize the ad for bids for the water meter replacement project.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the 2020 local street improvement project. Ryan, I believe this is you as well?
Mayor, City Council, within your packet is the request to authorize preparation of plans and specifications for the 2020 local street improvement project as identified on the attached figure, which would show the locations of those projects. The city's annual budget has been set at 1.22 million plus another 1.5 million with the bond proceeds and the refinancing bond that has recently occurred. So the total project budget is estimated at 2.72, which allows us to go from 1.4 or 1.39 miles to 4.31 miles here in 2020. So if bids are favorable, we'll set up the contract as usual to keep the lineal feet going on roads that will either get done in 20 or 21. So with that, you also have the anticipated schedule. Size of this project will be pretty much all along construction, or a summer of construction in those areas. Obviously, some of the areas are pretty sensitive to the 4th of July and other local events, so that same staging will be in effect that we've had with previous projects in those areas. So with that, we request that the City Council authorize preparation of plans and specifications for the 2020 local street improvement project as identified in the attachment.
Council, any questions of staff? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve, or we authorize the plan specifications for the street improvement projects for 2020
I'll second.
as requested.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Next item on our regular agenda, and the last item on our regular agenda, is the Ace Hardware invoices. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose?
And I'll abstain.
One abstention. That is the end of our official business for this evening. We will have a number of items that are in discussion-only format. First item for discussion is our 2020 annual city meetings calendar. Karen, I believe you're going to walk us through this.
I am. So before you, Mayor and members of the council, you have the annual 2020 meeting calendar. And with that, there's also the changes that are hoping to take place, starting with the Parks and Trails. So they're looking at changing the time of their meeting. Currently, they meet at 6 p.m. on the third Tuesday of each month. They would like to change that meeting to 5 p.m. on the third Tuesday of each month. Jamie also requested that during the months of June, July, and August, they move the meeting from Tuesday to Wednesday to accommodate Arts in the Park, make it a little bit easier on those months. EDA, the recommendation change is to meet monthly. They currently meet on the second and fourth Monday of each month. I think the idea now is to meet again 2 times a month, but it would be a meeting, and then the second time would be a workshop. So it would alternate between meeting and workshop. The Downtown Revitalization Committee is yet to be determined on when that will meet, but that's going to be a group that's forming, so we'll have to work that into the calendar somehow. And then the last change that I have is the Airport Commission. The current time they meet is 6 p.m. on the first Wednesday of each month, and the change is to meet at 6 p.m. on the first Wednesday of every other month. So it would be 6 meetings in a year. The calendar's laid out. You should have a diagram. Should be able to see it looks something like this. And then there's a second page that has the code for everything. So those are the recommended changes or the requested changes.
Any questions of staff? All of the commissions impacted have weighed in with their preference.
They have.
And staff liaison
I'd like to make
has
a
weighed in.
little bit of a comment about that.
Please.
From the Airport Commission, one of the other things that I talked about, and I requested it too, is maybe making the meetings a little bit later. And we decided that we would go through the year at, the rest of the year at 6 p.m. Seems like sometimes 6 o'clock is kind of tough to get there, especially during the summer. And so those 2 items were discussed, the possibility of making the meetings every other month, and then possibly going to 6:30 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah, 6:30 or 7, I can't remember.
Yeah. And we decided that we would try to make a firm decision on that by the next meeting, so we know where we're at with that. So that'd be the only fly in the ointment, I guess, if you're talking about schedules. But the other thing too is the Airport Commission too, they're more than willing to go to the every other month unless something comes up where we have to meet. Well, we could always advertise that too, so.
You'll confirm the timing before this goes before us for final adoption.
And that was going to be part of my staff report too, so anyways, thank you.
Perfect. From the EDA's perspective, the sequence of having official meetings on both the second and fourth Mondays of the month was a creature of both projects, and then also was very necessary during the building of this building and also some of the follow-up activities of this building where there were a lot of official action that was taken. Now with the bond refinancing and the city center going back to city jurisdiction, or not being an entity of the EDA, the preference is that group have more workshop time and still meeting 2 times a month, but one just in a less formal workshop session, which kind of reflects where that work plan is for the EDA. So I think that revised schedule meets their needs as well. Any other follow-up items or feedback council has heard? Very good. Staff, you have what you need from us?
I think so, yep.
This comes back to us.
With the exception of the Downtown Revitalization Committee.
Perfect. We'll form that first and decide a meeting schedule second. This comes back to a council for approval December meeting, is that the plan?
Yes.
Yeah, December 9th.
Perfect. Any adjustments between now and then, let staff know for final feedback? All right, next item on our discussion is the 2020 fee schedule. Karen, you want to walk us through changes to the fee schedule?
So, as you know, the fee schedule is an ordinance. And so this I'm looking to have adopted at the December 9th meeting as well, to accommodate for time, because it does need a notice prior to the adoption, and then it needs to be published, and a summary will be published for that. But the changes that are noted, there's a summary of changes. So for the administration, finance, there's an addition of a gambling premises license for $100, and that is for a background check on each individual location. That's already part of our city codes. It just was not added to the fee schedule last year. I don't know that it's ever been used, but to keep things cohesive, it should probably appear in the fee schedule as recommended by Bridget. So I added that. The Airport Commission shows no changes in their fee structure. Building and Fire shows no changes in their fee structures. Parks, Jamie is working on, if you go down to the park section on the fee schedule, you'll see highlighted in yellow the Fenway Field rental, and Jamie's working on some fee schedules related to that, so that's still to be determined. Planning and zoning showed no changes. Police, and if Chief wants to talk about that, he can, but I added photos on CD for $10, body-worn camera video on DVD or USB drive is a $20 prepayment plus staff fees, and then there's an addition of city staff and consulting billing for whatever their billing rates are. So Chief can talk about that if he wants to, since he's here.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions that you have. We just wanted to update our fee schedule because we currently have it photos, paper copies, or actual photos, and nowadays we just don't take pictures with Polaroids or things that we used to 20 years ago. And then the body-worn cameras is something that we potentially will be implementing this next year, and I just want to make sure that's in the fee schedule, even though we don't have them at this point. So it's just updating the fee schedule under the police.
Can we add, because we don't have body-worn cameras currently, can we just add parenthetically once available or once implemented or something that just designates that it's a placeholder?
Sure.
Recognizing what we're passing this for the upcoming year, so I think it's smart to be ahead, and certainly there is a different workload involved with that type of data request, so I think it makes sense to have it on the fee schedule. It's just not create any confusion. Any other questions of Chief before we move on to other changes? Okay, go ahead, Karen.
So then we move on to Public Works. There's a couple things that I think Dave added in. He can talk about them if he wants to, but there is a zero-turn mower for a $30 fee. There was a couple spelling changes that needed to happen, so those got made. And the biggest change would be to Exhibits B and D. So Exhibit B changed the project design letter of credit to 18 to 22% of construction costs. Public improvement costs or letter of credit changed to 125% of construction costs. Private improvement costs, letter of credit is 100% of construction costs. And then seal coat escrow is 28 cents per square foot of public road. So I don't know if Dave wants to talk about those, he can.
Dave, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Pretty straightforward. And then the last one would be Exhibit D, and those are vendor prices is my understanding. And so you do have a hard copy of that at the dais, Just wanted to give you a hard copy of it because that change was given all to me today. So you can see highlighted in yellow and then the changes in red that were made. And those are prices that Dave received from his vendors.
Thank you, Karen. Also, nice job on the reformatting. This is a much easier to follow fee schedule than what we've had in the past. Nice
Yeah.
work.
And it'll be a lot easier to update in the future.
For sure. Any questions, feedback to staff? This is a discussion item, and the staff feedback, any feedback will be taken into account and brought back for a future meeting for official adoption. I have a question on the gambling, the premise license. What page is that on? If you could point me.
Should be
Here we
under
go.
administration
It's right on
licenses
the
and
front.
permits. Yep.
So this isn't a change in policy or change in fees. We've always charged this. We've just never had it on the fee schedule.
Correct, it's part of the gambling ordinance, it just has not appeared on the fee schedule, and I happened to catch it because somebody turned in a premises license, and trying to learn what all is entailed, I did some research on the ordinance and discovered that there's a $100 fee. It got kicked back from the police. They said, we don't typically do this. So I spoke with Bridget, find out what trumps right now, and that's the current fee schedule that we have for 2019. And then her suggestion was that for moving forward, we need to get this on the 2020 fee schedule, whether we charge that or not, we have one. Okay. So.
Any other questions, comments related to the fee schedule? So I'll make a note that I just want to kind of on the record that I know that there's been a lot of consternation over the $280 airport fee. That has been a topic of hot conversation for several years now, and every time we reapprove the fee schedule, that comes up again. I am working with staff and working with the chair of the Airport Commission to have a joint workshop with both council and the Airport Commission to talk about a host of airport issues. And I expect that to be one of the items of conversation. Given overall financial condition of the airport, I'm open to opening the door of changing that fee. But I want us to do it with council being up to date on overall financial condition of the airport, overall operating status of the airport. There's been a lot of history there. This is a relatively new council. It is new information. So I am okay having the $280 on the fee schedule now. As I understand it, those fees aren't actually collected until later into 2020. So I'd like to open the door for reconsideration, but I think council needs to have some education first, and then I think there needs to be a joint workshop where we can kind of all come to agreement on what is the future plan for the just overall financial operations of the airport. So I'd like us to have that conversation, not so much because the $280 is important, but just the broader financial condition. And so I'll put that out there. I think timeline of us having that workshop, that's probably a January or February activity. So I expect that the $280 is going to stay on and is likely going to be approved yet this year, but I just want to leave the door open that we may be making some changes. I'm open to considering that if that's the consensus of the group based on a workshop conversation. Sam, anything to add?
Yeah, the other thing I just wanted to, and I appreciate your comments very much. The other issues are we need to talk about some funding because of the fact that we're trying to sell 123 acres that we get farm income off of right at the moment. And of course, that keeps dwindling down too. So we need to be talking about that and how we're going to take care of that. And so there's going to be several issues to be talked about at a good workshop.
So future state, but just wanted to kind of give the heads up and
Yep.
something for us to consider at a future workshop.
I'll make sure that there's a long list of things
Yes.
to talk about. So,
Might be several workshops.
yep.
Any other questions, comments related to the fee schedule? Staff, do you have what you need from us?
I do, yep.
Perfect, very good. Okay, moving on to our next item, Downtown Committee Group is a discussion item. Dan is going to give a high-level update, or give an update of a presentation that was given to the EDA. The EDA, at our last meeting, workshopped it, had some discussion, provided some feedback. Dan has taken that feedback and wants to give an update to council, get any council feedback, and then the thought would be that this gets sent back to the EDA and built into their work plan for 2020. Since the overall downtown initiative was high on our strategic planning list. Want to make sure that we're kind of keeping both groups in sync. And ultimately, there's an opportunity for us to probably have some joint workshops in this area with both the EDA and also the Planning Commission. And whenever technology's ready.
Okay, here we go. All right, Mayor, members of the council, I'm here just to kind of give the overview of the downtown scoping study that we went through at the EDA level back in, I believe it was the end of October, so 10/28/19. On page 114 of your packet, I did kind of summarize some of the feedback that the EDA did give during that initial scoping work that we went through. But tonight what I'll do is just kind of go through the presentation that was given to EDA so everybody has the same information that the EDA went through, and then we're just kind of looking for feedback from the council's perspective as to what they feel the downtown working group should focus on, kind of thoughts on staff or size of the group and some of the work plan items that the group will be tasked with working on when they start. Just to give a little bit of background on it, so Downtown Working Group ranked high on the list of priorities during the strategic planning sessions that the city held this past summer. This was on a lot of different lists as a high ranked item. So with that, it did also rank high on the EDA's existing work plan. The EDA developed a work plan back in 2018. One of the items was to promote downtown revitalization. That's kind of was the catch-all topic for downtown revitalization, but a specific group focusing on that was one thing that the EDA had also a conversation about. Also, coincidentally, this was also recommended as a project by the Urban Land Institute. However, I don't think it was directly recommended by them. If you recall back during that presentation, one of the presenters had said, I've come through Forest Lake for a number of years, and had said he never actually had been downtown. He kind of was stuck in the freeway corridor, kind of in the big box retail side of it. So I think that identified a need that we need to get people off the freeway into our downtown area. So I think through that Urban Land Institute study, we did get some feedback that, we need to get some additional focus in our downtown corridor. One of the first things that we did at the EDA level was, when we started talking about downtown, we started looking at everybody's vision of downtown's a little bit different. So we started looking at what do we want to do to define our downtown boundaries. So when we talk about downtown study or downtown group, we know what geographical area they're focusing on. So the EDA, back I believe it was in April, went through and kind of had a conversation of what they want to define the downtown boundary as. What they recommended was actually using the mixed unit, the MU1 zoning district, which is currently the zoning district that does cover downtown, as kind of the starting point to define the downtown area. One thing during that scoping, or when we had the conversation, was that we looked at these aren't hard and fast boundaries. So if a project or an area study kind of falls outside of this dotted line area that's on the map in front of you, it still would be inclusive. It's kind of more, if we're thinking just downtown area, this is the area that we are looking for. Like, for instance, when the Humphrey Institute was looking for the downtown area, this is the area that I presented to them saying, this is what we define as a downtown area. Here's that same slide, just a little bit further out so you kind of see it in context, just a little bit bigger context within the city of Forest Lake. But again, these boundaries aren't hard and fast boundaries. If there's some bleed out on the Broadway Avenue, we'd be willing to kind of extend it out there. Same thing goes north and south on 61 as well. We'd be willing to entertain kind of expanding it, but the core focus would be in the area within the dots on your map. The downtown area has been studied quite a bit here in the city. So one of the things I did, I went back through and kind of looked at what are some of the more recent historical work that we've done in our downtown area. In 2012, the city did a corridor study. That corridor study focused on design aesthetics and water, correct me, was it water movement, or Ryan has a better term than I What was it again?
Trunk Highway 61 Water Quality and Aesthetics Plan.
See, already better than I can kind of muster out here. So
I was reading something else.
it looked at and sorry to put you on the spot there, but it looked at the entire Highway 61 corridor, but a large portion of that was the downtown area. So that was one of the historical documents that we did pull off the shelf. Also back in 2015, elected officials as well as appointed officials held a downtown business owner summit. We met with local business owners in the downtown area where we talked about redevelopment and zoning, transportation and parking, and business attraction and retention. So we did kind of have a one-time meeting downtown, well attended by local business owners, well attended by those who work in the downtown area. There is some good information that came out of that meeting. However, some of that information is also dated at this point. One of the big drivers at the 2015 summit was the redevelopment of the former City Hall site. So obviously that wouldn't be something that we want to do now that was redeveloped as Lighthouse Lofts. So, but that's just kind of showing that we have done some historical work in the downtown area. The EDA also has launched a number of current studies and programs, specifically in the downtown area. The first thing is we are currently working on a downtown infrastructure study. The purpose of this study is to take a look at the sewer infrastructure in our downtown area to see how much of that is being used, what's the capacity that's left in our sewer system downtown. The data that we get will be used for modeling to say if we have a multifamily redevelopment site that opens up in the downtown area, will our sewer handle that additional capacity that the building or the redevelopment will put into it? We're looking at that kind of early on in the process, so we know if we have to make any investments in the downtown, we'll know those before we get projects in line. So the EDA has funded a downtown infrastructure study. It's going to be a 2-year study. This year is the data collection, and then in 20 will be the modeling. So they'll actually finish collecting the data at the end of this year, take all of that flow data, and then do the modeling in next year. So we'll have the results for that next year. We're also working with the Humphrey Institute to do a market study that's specifically for downtown. A group of graduate students from the Humphrey Institute are taking our downtown area, kind of looking at it from what's the trade area that we get for downtown, what do we have from a retail and from a restaurant perspective, and seeing what gaps we have, what would be a good fit for downtown based on the data that they can find. And they're going to package up a pretty robust study on that. We got lucky, and a couple of the students that are on there are actually kind of big into transportation planning. So they asked, hey, can we do anything related to that? I said, by all means, if you want to study on transportation planning, by all means, add that in there. So they are also looking at the possibility of adding, if time allows, just some initial parking study as well. I can't guarantee what that'll look like or if they'll have time to do it. I think when we're scoping it out, they kind of had big ideas. We'll see what that comes out of. But we are getting a Humphrey Institute study right now. Results should be coming back in December at some point. The downtown beautification efforts, the EDA has funded the flower pots that are downtown, and there's a group of volunteers that have been doing a fantastic job of not only placing the pots downtown, but making sure that they're seasonally appropriate. They've changed them out, I think, 3 times now. So they just did that over the weekend. So if you drive through downtown, they've been well received. So we're doing some beautification in our downtown area. And then we also have the Downtown Incentive Program. That program has been in place for a number of years. That's focused on if you do a refacing of your building, you can qualify for an abatement. We also do some expedited building permits as well as some reduced fees depending upon the project. So we do have a incentive program to encourage existing buildings to do facelifts and kind of improve the what you see from the roadside in downtown. What helped with the EDA when we kind of started going through this was to kind of take a step back before we kind of go into the deliverables and just kind of say, what is the vision? To kind of, keep this in the back of your mind as you kind of go forward is what is the vision for downtown Forest Lake? Is it, you kind of envision a downtown full of multifamily, full of retail opportunity, full of office space, professional space, restaurants. Reason being is I think that vision will kind of help to drive some of the deliverables and what that group kind of focuses on. It also is going to help to kind of guide, what programs come out of there, because obviously if you try to market to multifamily, that's a different approach than to get retail space down there, than to get office space down there. One thing that I did was I just kind of came up with some other downtowns that we have kind of regionally to kind of help get people concrete examples. So you can look at Excelsior as an example, White Bear Lake, kind of downtown White Bear Lake, downtown Stillwater, what is, is one example, and up in Duluth Canal Park, that was just to kind of give some concrete examples of what a downtown area could look like. So as we kind of go forward with this, it's kind of keep that vision, in the back of your mind of what you kind of vision downtown Forest Lake looking like. One of the goals that we had with the scoping at the EDA was the committee establishment, was establishing the downtown committee. Natural fit, and we kind of looked at it from an organizational standpoint to fit as a subcommittee of the EDA, given a lot of these initiatives have been launched through the EDA. There's kind of a lot of synergy between what the EDA is doing on their existing work plan, current project they have in place, and kind of taking a downtown committee would be a natural fit into the EDA. We talked briefly about the committee size and makeup. Originally, it was recommended for a committee group of 5. The EDA gave feedback on that, and they actually felt 7 would be more appropriate for the downtown committee. They recommended, the makeup of having a developer on there as a possibility. I believe the makeup was 2 EDA members, a member of the Planning Commission, because again, some of the initiatives that come out of the downtown group would have potential implication of the Planning Commission side, so they have a representation from the Planning Commission, representation from the downtown business group, so we have people who work in the downtown area able to attend and provide feedback. Again, we started out with 5. They recommended bringing that group up to 7. We didn't really get into the meeting frequency conversation. It was more just on kind of the establishment of the group. But one thing that we did talk about was just some initial work plan items. As these groups tend to start, they tend to get a lot of momentum right out of the gate. We wanted to make sure that they were tasked with stuff that they could kind of take that initial momentum, capture it, and get some of these items in the pipeline for completion. So some of the things that were brought out just as potential work plan items was, one, working with the watershed to identify barriers for redevelopment projects in the downtown corridor, and then look for creative solutions for those barriers. Another one was to kind of take that review of the existing downtown study materials that I talked about earlier in the presentation and just get familiar with them to kind of make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, that we're not putting studies out there that already haven't been done. So kind of getting up to speed on the existing studies that have been done. Working with the property owners in downtown, making sure that we don't do this in a vacuum, that we have feedback and input from the downtown business owners. Reviewing the Humphrey Institute study. So when the Humphrey Institute study comes back, they would dive into the Humphrey Institute study, take a look at what they recommend, and potentially develop a business attraction strategy based on that market analysis that the students provide. Overall, the development of a downtown redevelopment planning document, a document that kind of helps guide the downtown redevelopment, and then also reviewing the current sewer capacity study, and then depending upon what comes back out of that capacity study, is making recommendations for future infrastructure investments and improvements based on that result. So that was some of the ideas that were first floated out. The EDA also, when they kind of had conversations about that, they wanted to make sure that this group had access to technical subject matter experts. They wanted to make sure that we made, Ryan available if they had they started getting in the weeds on engineering, just to make sure that they had those tools available to them for them to be successful. One of the things they wanted to add to the work plan items was to work with the consultant for the development of that vision statement for the group, so the group kind of has a clear guidance as to what they're going to be focused on. So again, taking that momentum, working with the consultant to kind of draft that vision statement, they kind of felt that maybe better suited by having somebody who specializes in that type of planning be brought in. So that was kind of the initial feedback that we got from the EDA. Right now, we're looking at, possibly this is a 2020 launch. We're kind of in we're still kind of scoping it out. At this point, we're looking for council feedback on kind of what's been done to date, if we're missing anything, anything that we want to add to it. From there, we'll kind of package it all up and start looking at the next level down, where we're looking at what is that number, what is the meeting frequency. Just so council is aware, we have looked at we started working on the 2020 EDA work plan, and so in tandem with that, I started looking at the budget for the EDA in 2020. There is sort of an earmark for a downtown committee, so this would be funded, the budget impact would be within the EDA. So we were looking at, we put money aside, potentially earmarked it for the downtown committee. But we're also looking at, if this group wants to launch another study initiative, we're looking to leverage that with what the Washington County CDA is offering for their grant program. So we have the ability right now to launch a lot of projects at a lower cost to the city because we're able to leverage we have quite a bit of ability with Washington County CDA funds that are available. So still pretty early on, but we're in the kind of the overall process, but we're starting to get to the spot now. We're starting to, get closer to getting a deliverable project. So just looking for feedback on what's been presented, anything that's missed, and at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any feedback.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I know it's a lot. I apologize. I tend to drone out, but I just wanted to make sure we got, everything. that
I'm sorry, you did a great job. You did.
Dan, I think it's really cool to see, having finished the strategic plan, seeing the movement on this already. I think it's just really neat to see. So thank you for all of the work that you guys do.
Any items that council thinks is missing or would like to have the EDA make sure that they include as part of next steps? Just want to make sure that council and EDA are aligned. And as Dan had mentioned, this had been through an EDA workshop, and the plan would be to send it back to them with any council suggestions. Any feedback you would like to provide? Seems to be on an okay track.
This is much more thorough than I expected to see already done.
Yeah.
So
good.
it's,
Yeah.
I'm very happy to see that, and if, my only desire is how fast can you guys get moving?
Yeah, right.
We
So,
need to move forward, and there's always talk that we need more business, more restaurants, et cetera, downtown, so whatever. I'm willing, whatever we need to do from a council standpoint to help it out.
And I think to that, I had a meeting this morning with, kind of talking about downtown, because I got the chamber emailed out and they said there's concern about some of the vacancies that are happening downtown, just in terms of when you drive through, there's more vacancies up there. Was talking to somebody from Open to Business this morning, just kind of, what they're seeing. And one of the things that he brought up was the possibilities that, some of the barriers for some of the small businesses to get in there are the rent levels at this point, So he said if rents are too high, he's like, if that's what the market's giving in, that could be a potential barrier for some, So just having those conversations, a lot of different facets to a downtown study, but I think at least scoping it out starts to you can start to identify those barriers and hopefully overcome them to encourage that development and redevelopment to happen downtown.
couple comments that, and staff's already heard this from me because I gave it as part of the EDA perspective, but just so everyone knows my mindset on this. I think when we are looking at developing the vision for downtown, I would encourage us to take advice of those in the business that are understanding future trends. I get a little squirmish when I hear us say that we want to be the next Stillwater or White Bear Lake, and we've got a very specific definition of what that looks like. I think we need to be careful to understand both retail and housing trends and make sure that the vision that we're putting forward is future-proof. And not something that already exists in the market and isn't unique. And I know that there are resources out there that can help guide us with that. And I think that's going to be important because setting that vision is going to set the tone for what we do downtown. And I just want to make sure that we are thoughtful and also that the EDA has, again, the right tools of who those experts are that can help guide that decision. Another item that kind of at the more tactical level when we're talking about work plan items, the initial draft that we had discussed at the EDA didn't include parking, and every time we talk about downtown, I just think parking has to be part of the equation. It's an area that the city can be solidly at the table and should be solidly at the table. And then also ultimately defining what is the role and what is the role of the city, what are we willing to take on, and where are we looking to partner either with private investment or with other partners. We had a lot of really good discussion at today's workshop about opportunities for partnering with the chamber, opportunities for partnering with Washington County. And every time we have this conversation, Washington County keeps coming to the table with resources. And so let's fill out the work plan and then think creatively on how do we resource that and how do we use some of those partnerships. So just want to make sure that everyone, again, is in sync and that we're kind of all on the same page. So just a couple of perspectives I had. Anything else related to work plan? Otherwise, we will take this back to the EDA, and this will be kind of part of next steps. Because will be an official group, there will be a council action that kind of does the kind of officially launches the downtown working group, and we will look for that to kick off here very early in 2020. So, thank you for the feedback. That being the end of our discussion agenda this evening, staff updates. Chief Peterson, anything for us tonight?
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, I do have one item for you. I'm pleased to tell you that all of our police officers have now attended crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour classroom and practical scenarios in order to assist police officers in giving them tips and strategies when encountering a mentally ill person in crisis. Mental illness can include depression, schizophrenia, as well as issues such as autism, dementia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and traumatic brain injuries. During the training, the officers learned different strategies on how to work with a person in crisis to de-escalate them and de-escalate a potentially dangerous situation. I've been told many stories by officers that have already gone through the training and have been involved in these types of situations, and they said the training definitely has helped them. Just want to let you know that the training was paid for by a Washington County grant, and we started the training 3 years ago. So it's good that we have that training and just another tool in the toolbox to help us.
That's great.
That's all I have for you.
That's great. Thank you. It's a great investment. Dan?
I just want to let the council make aware of the fact that there's now a live survey on the city's website for the compost site feedback. So we're starting to get feedback from the residents on the compost site and the potential possible closure of that. So I'll probably keep that open through the end of this month until the compost site closes, and I'll collect all that feedback. But I think to date, we're looking at approximately 30 people have submitted feedback. So it grew quite a bit over the weekend. I attended the MinCar Expo, which is the Minnesota Commercial Real Estate Expo down in Minneapolis. A lot of good feedback from those who are attending regarding the technology corridor. Got a lot of good market feedback. They were very impressed with the fact that the efforts that have been done to date, and they were, a lot of people are excited about it. So there's a lot of good stuff out in the market on that at this point. So just want to report that.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Sandy?
Nothing more to add other than I'm going to be gearing up for December for the budget finalization.
Very good. Thank you. Karen?
I'm good, nothing else.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, I have three things tonight. One, I'd just like to inform the public and the council that the city has retained its AA+ bond rating, which is an excellent bond rating for a city of our size. And the bond sale is scheduled for Thursday morning. Looks like the bond market right now is in a good shape, so we're expecting a good result. Thursday, I will be attending a House committee regarding the bonding bill and presenting our projects to try to see if they can fund those through the bonding bill. So wish me luck on Thursday morning. And then finally, just the comment period for the Washington County CIP plan is open, and anybody should take a look at that. Staff will be commenting on some of those issues that we see, particularly in the area of compost and possibly recycling centers.
Very good. Any updates?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Perfect. Ryan?
Mayor, City Council, all that I'll add is at our workshop next Monday, we'll be talking about Highway 97 and what MnDOT may have planned for year 2024, and then also water management area and potential regional ditch drain tile maintenance work that is going on, just to get you up on speed. So more with that next Monday.
Very good. Thank you. Dave?
No updates.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Gerard?
No update.
Councilmember Munson?
No updates.
Very good. Councilmember Husnick?
I attended the EDA meeting tonight, and Dan covered that, so we're good there. The Airport Commission meeting, we met last week and discussed some of the things that were actually brought up tonight. There's a couple of the things that we discussed. We have some businesses going on out there that we need to get fixed there too. So that was part of the conversation, along with the time changes and so forth and so on. And then last Tuesday, I attended the strategic planning with the school board, and there's about, 20 people working on this thing. And this was our second meeting. The next one's on the 18th. By then, we're going to have a pretty good idea where it's coming together. We should So everybody's really working hard on that. Also, yesterday was Veterans Day, and of course, that's a big thing for our family. We spent the day celebrating with the veterans. I attended the middle school program and the high school program, the Layla, and of course, the program at Legion. And it's kind of a big deal for us. I have lots of good friends that are, combat vets, and the city of Forest Lake is well represented by veterans. And I also have a son that's served the last 29 years. He's still active with the National Guard, 3 tours overseas and all that. So it's a big deal for us. And so we spent the day celebrating. Didn't get anything else done for the day. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Very good. A couple of updates. In our last meeting, council held a closed session for the purpose of the performance review of our city administrator, Patrick Casey. And as required, a summary of that performance review. I'm going to read this because we are in performance review territory. So the council met in closed session to review the performance of city administrator at its October 28th, 2019 meeting. The result of that review is the city council finds the overall performance of the city administrator to meet our expectations. Council discussed city administrators' performance with respect to several specific 2018 and 2019 projects. Areas of note and areas where we were very pleased with performance were in organizational leadership, the water rate study, labor contracts, the refuse contracts, and overall strategic planning. We discussed goals and expectations with respect to 2020 and future focus areas, including both focusing on community involvement and also building out the infrastructure 10-year financial plan for the city, again, as specific areas of focus for 2020. Also attended the Everyone Belongs session, which was the first of the 3-part learning series that is co-sponsored by the YMCA and the school district. The YMCA brings the content for those meetings, and they did an absolutely outstanding job at that first session. There were about 100 people in attendance, which was great to see. The second session is tonight, and I would invite everyone to join next week for the third session, which is November 19th. That's from 6 to 8:30 at the Forest Lake High School. We couple of notes related to the EDA that we did not already talk about. Mark Finneman is going to be staying on the EDA, and we do still have 1 open position. I expect to have a recommendation for council consideration at our November 25th meeting, which would fully fill that EDA, which is needed given all of the activities that we have coming up. I also attended the Veterans Day program. The VFW and the Legion do a great job with that. I was able to attend the program at Leela, and then was able to attend the evening program at the Legion. So thank you to both the VFW and the Legion for a great day. Also, I'm going to be attending the bonding bill presentation. This is a great opportunity for our city. It's the first time that we've applied to be part of the state bonding bill. So have an opportunity to present our project. We have our 15 minutes of spotlight fame. We will do our best to sell ourselves to that audience. It is a House committee that is meeting, and we will be talking in particular about the Goodview and 97 project. We have a link on our website to collect public comment and public participation for that project. That link goes directly to both the state Office of Management and Budget, and that all of those public comments will be reviewed both by the House, the Senate, and the governor's office when they're considering what to do with that bonding bill. And again, we really want to make sure that Forest Lake is well represented and that we have our fair share at those funds. Again, it's a new source of revenue for us, and we're doing everything that we can to be successful there. So anything the public can do to help us is much appreciated. That being the end with staff updates and mayor and council updates, we are going to move into a closed session. Sam, you want to move us into a closed session?
Please. Madam Mayor, I move to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13 Delta .05, Subchapter 3B as in Bravo, pursuant to the attorney-client privilege to discuss the following pending litigation matters. Lakeview Farms of Forest Lake LLC versus Forest Hills Farm Owners Association and the City of Forest Lake, and Virginia Fisher versus the City of Forest Lake. The closed meeting will be held in the Forest Lake room and will commence immediately. Once the closed meeting is completed, the City Council will reconvene the open meeting portion of tonight's City Council meeting in the council chambers. There being no further items on the agenda, once back in open session, the council will simply adjourn the meeting.
Motion to close, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And we're in closed session.